Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Small Talk. The topic of my today's video is emotional trauma and painful suffering. Sometimes when we are very young, our parents obviously back in the days did not have that much awareness, or maybe they were from a different culture, different time. It was believed to have your children as your property, and you expected so much from your kids that they forgot that your children are human beings at the end of the day as well. I belong from a gaon, a village, and obviously, even if your parents are educated, there's so much involved in the culture of that village that they have to adopt lots of things that are very norm of the societies in those small villages. And the boys are very well loved and taken care of and protected by their mothers and their fathers, and they're always uh, parents always feel proud when they have a son versus when a daughter is born. The first prayer that you get from everybody, "Ki Allah naseeb acha kare." Like that's the only prayer you get when a baby girl is born. Why can't they ever say, "May Allah give her success in life. May Allah make her the pride for you as a parents. May Allah make her the apple of your eyes. May Allah give her the strength." Um, and success in this world and hereafter. None of that. That only goes for the boys. For girls, the only prayer you get, "Oh acha beti ho ye chalo Allah naseeb acha kare ista." So since you're kids, there's this the difference between genders is very prominent. Even if you were not living in a small village, and even if you're living in the cities, a generation back, if you go back, obviously the boys were always very well loved and taken care of, and they were presented as a trophy that, oh, I have a boy, versus if a girl was born, everybody felt a little bit of sadness, like, okay, I have a girl now. Or if, especially if the first child is a girl, it has been a problem for the women and for the men. And the families will always have, oh, if the first baby was a boy, it would have been better. So this story starts from that very early, from the day one the baby is born. And then when those children are growing up in the families, in the societies, um, obviously a year, 2 years goes by, the second child comes. Now maybe the second one is a boy and the first one was a girl. So that difference between the two genders is very common in the family. The grandmothers are always more loving towards the boys. Moms, obviously their mothers, they love their kids equally. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. Of course, the father will be more attached to the boy because he can take him outside with him, go places with the boys, whereas daughters usually stay home with the mothers, and all that's the normal stuff that takes place in the Pakistani Indian subcontinent region and the societies. During this whole process, sometimes parents don't realize how much they are traumatizing their newborn children. From day one, this gender difference has been implemented in their brains, and somehow girls start becoming depressed, and they have this inferiority complex in their mind because they think they're less than, because they are always told that intentionally or unintentionally, directly or indirectly, those kind of conversations do take place in the families, and kids are very smart. They absorb, we all know now that we live in a modern time that the first few years of children's life, they're like sponges. They absorb everything. So whatever they see, whatever they hear, whatever they experience, they absorb them, and that's what makes or breaks their personality. And those kind of comments and those kind of talks stay with the kids for a long period of time. And that develops into lots of emotional instability, emotional trauma, and pain and suffering in young boys and girls. And it's a very painful process. When those kids grow up, obviously boys have this mindset of they're better than, and girls have this mindset of they're less than. I grew up, well, I didn't grow up in a village, but I used to go there every summer during our summer vacation, and I noticed that in gaon, in villages, people, like, let's say they made chicken for their dinner. The boy would always get the leg piece because he's the boy. um, oh ये जो मुर्गे की टांग है ये भाई को दे दो, तुम छोटी बोटी ले लो. Like it was so prominent that from every little thing, like having a small piece of chicken versus a big piece of chicken, to like better clothes for the boys, worse clothes for the girls. Boys can go to school, girls cannot go to school. Boys can, oh well, he's a boy, he can do it, but you know, you're a beti ho, apne kal ko dusre ghar jana hai, so there are lots of things that you can't do as a girls, and their childhood is taken away from them. When they grow up, obviously they are being prepared to go to somebody else's house, so they have been raised in a very strict environment. And this is just the village, but in cities maybe it's not to that extent. But even in the cities, when girls grow up a little bit, there are lots of things that they're not allowed to do, which is fine. Of course, boys and girls are different, so there are some things that boys can do but girls can't. But it seems like कि लड़कों को जैसे सात खून माफ होते हैं कि कोई नहीं, वो तो लड़का है, खैर है, उसकी उसका गुजारा हो जाएगा, पर तुम बेटी हो, तुम नहीं कर सकती. तो ये जो कांस्टेंट एक स्ट्रगल और जो डिफरेंस होता है, ये फिर बहुत सारे इमोशनल ट्रॉमा की वजह बनती है. And so many times those girls, when they go outside, when they go to school and colleges, and obviously now they have co-education, there are going to be boys and they are going to be attracted towards the opposite gender. Boys will probably reach out to them, they will want to talk to them or be friends with them, or they express their feelings for the girls. So girls will, without even knowing, they like that attention because they haven't had that kind of attention inside the house. So the first person that reaches out to them, no matter how bad or good he is, they just start falling for that person. And most of the time, when those kind of romantic relationships they develop in schools and colleges, it becomes an other nightmare for the girls. Now, because she's not allowed to like someone as her life partner, as her future spouse, that causes another chaos in her life. Now she is a bad egg somehow because she expressed her feelings about certain person in her school or college to her parents, her mother or father. I mean, father, forget about it. Girls cannot talk to their fathers, but sure, mothers, even for the mothers, they, they have to hear all kind of stuff which is not cool, not nice. And that causes even more stress and depression and anxiety and uh, painful trauma in their lives. Then what happens is, if a girl expresses her feeling about some guy, now parents will say you can't go to school anymore, you can't go to college anymore, your education is just abandoned, you cannot get any more education, we're going to get you married to some random guy. Whereas boys can have 10 affairs and they're going to say, oh well, he's a boy, he's fine. They'll just say, don't do this. Or sometimes they'll say it proudly, he's so bad, he has multiple affairs with so many girls, and girls just run after my son. And it's actually presented as if it's some great accomplishment that he's accomplished. So this difference in gender um, keeps on going for a long, long period of time. And the parents, they're always saying bad things to their children. They're saying negative things to their daughters in particular. Sometimes even to the boys. Some for example, my dad loved his daughters more than I think he loved his son. I'm sure he loved his son too, but we were four sisters. We only had one boy, one brother in our family, one boy in the family, and he's the youngest one. And I was very close to my father, not so close to my mother though. I was like daddy's girl always. Ever since I was a young girl, we lived in our gaon where we had our lots of zamine properties. And then my father was building a house in the city, and I had to go to school, so we lived with my pupo for a couple of years. And I used to go with my dad everywhere. I was his first child, and we would go to city together because he had his business there. And then I stayed with my pupo. I was admitted in a school, and I would come home on the weekends. And I was very close to my grandmother, my dadi amma, my dad's mother, and not so close to my mom. So I would sleep with my grandmother at night the weekend. Back then, the weekend was on a Friday, so we didn't have holiday on Sundays. In Pakistan, the holiday was on Friday. So we used to come home Thursday evening, and I would spend the whole day of Friday with my daddy, with my cousins, and then Monday morning we would leave again because I had school and my dad obviously had to do go to work. So I was very close to my father and and to my daddy, and I guess my mother didn't like it, and she had this cold feeling about me, even though I was her first child. But because my daddy loved me so much and my dad loved me so much, I guess my mom felt insecure, or she just didn't like the fact that whenever my mom yelled at me for something, my daddy was always there to protect me. And that during, I mean, between their tug of war, it did affect my mental health a lot. I was super sensitive to lots of things. I would cry over everything. I used to stammer. I couldn't talk. If I had to speak to someone, I couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come out of my mouth because I had to like, it would take me good 30 seconds to say one word. And all that caused because I was always so confused and terrified from all the small fights that my mother and my grandmother had, or my mother and my father had, and things like that. So it did affect me a lot mentally. And it took away, it shattered my confidence. I was not able to say anything back to anybody. People would just say and yell at me. My mom would just beat me up, or she would slap me, and I wouldn't even cry because I was like, I just want to finish this as soon as possible. I don't want to, keep getting involved into this whole drama. And I was very young at the time. I was in pre-K or kindergarten, and my father took me to the city, and he admitted me to the school. So that one day that I spent in Gaon, I avoided my mother completely because I knew if I did something wrong as a kid, you make mistakes, you break glasses, you break plates, you may do something else, maybe mess up her makeup or something, or uh, take her dupatta and try to wear it, and then it's next thing you know, it's all ripped and she's mad. So those stupid little things that kids do, and I was always afraid to even go to my parents' room where my mother lived because I just wanted to avoid any conflict or any interaction with her. As a result, I was very close to my daddy and my dad. I was very close to my pupo as well. So I always was happy to go to Gaon because my daddy was there. But then Monday morning I would cry because I didn't want to leave my daddy. And then I spent very little time with my mother. I had one more sister at the time, and she was very close to my mom, my younger sister. And my mom always adored her. She was very talkative. She was very, hyper baby. Me, on the other hand, I was very calm, quiet, say a few words every day. Even if I played with my cousins, I would just play quiet games, no noise, nothing. And then at home, at night, I would come home and I would just lay in the bed with my daddy, and she would tell me the stories, the very traditional household that we have in Pakistani culture, especially in Gaon culture. As I was growing up, I was struggling to relate to my mother. Then we moved to our new house once it was completed, and now my daddy wasn't there. My daddy was still in Gaon, and I was stuck with my mom every single day. Um, so since we had this clash since I was a baby, I guess my mother had developed this disliking against me for some reason. I don't know why. Probably because my grandmother always favored me, and she always got mad at my mom whenever she yelled at me, and I guess she just didn't like it. So when I even when we moved to our new home, my pupa's house was right across the street from our house. I would go to school in the morning. On my way back home, I'll go straight to my pupa's house. I'll spend all day there at my pupa's house because that's where I lived for 2 years. And I had two cousins, they were about the same age as I am, so I was very good friends with them. And we would just play, do our homework, and then I would come home at night and go to sleep. Then my father had to go away for a few years out of country, and but by then we were five of us, four sisters and one brother. So my mother had all five kids, and we lived there. Um, and now my mother wanted me to be home because I was in fifth grade, and she said because I'm the oldest one and I'm a girl, I should take care of the younger siblings while she's busy taking care of other stuff because my dad wasn't there. And obviously, I didn't want to be at home with my mom, unfortunately. being the oldest child and oldest girl especially, it would have been nice if I had this strong relationship with my mother, but I didn't. So my daddy would come visit us every once in a while, and when the day I knew that my daddy is coming, it was the day of Eid for me, because I just loved my daddy Amma so much, and she loved me. She pampered me. She literally spoiled me. She would bring goodies for me from Gaon, all the things that you can't find in the cities. She will bring them all for me, so I can enjoy them. And then again, when my daddy comes to out to visit us, I would just sleep with her at night in her room, and I would spend most of my time with her. And because my papa lived across the street, so my daddy and I used to go to my papa's house, and then we used to just enjoy that whole environment. Coming to my house was always sort of a miserable situation for me. And when you go to high school, you read all these things, home sweet home, and there's nothing, no other place like home. And I used to say, who likes home? I don't want to go home. Like, why do people say home sweet home? Home is not sweet. So why am I telling all these things? I'm telling all these things. These are my personal experiences. And in the beginning of my channel, when I started this channel, I explained, lots of people may not agree with me because there are lots of things that don't take place in some homes, but in some homes they do. But those are my personal experiences, and there are lots of kids who are experiencing these kind of situations inside the house. This family politics, this mother versus mother-in-law, and a mother versus sister-in-law, these kind of clashes end up harming kids so much that it shatters their personality. They lose their confidence, they lose their faith in their own parents, they lose the love and feeling and the compassion for their parents. And then I used to read all these things about, I mean, of course, I have a decent relationship with my mom now because I'm more mature and I'm more understanding, of course. But being a young girl, obviously, it was not easy for me to comprehend all that. And then the second thing my mother did was, because she was very close to my younger sister, and my younger sister was very, you can say, she had very charming personality for my mom. Not so much for me. We always had personality clash, my sister and I, but I guess her personality was more like my mom's personality, and that's how my mom could relate to her much better. I was more like my dad, quiet, subtle, keep keep things to myself, mind my own business, and don't talk much kind of thing. And uh, that didn't help at all either. So the second thing my mom did was she was always comparing me with my younger sister. What she didn't realize is I am Farhat and she's Ishrat. I will never be Ishrat even if I tried to be. I have a unique personality. Every child when he or she is born, comes in this world with their own personality, and you have to embrace their personality and accept them who they are. Don't try to make them who they're not and who they can never be. When you try to change their personalities, try to change them to become someone that they're not, it's going to destroy their personality completely. And that's exactly what happened to me. I had zero confidence. I couldn't talk to anybody. People would come, like even the kids my age would bully me, and I couldn't tell them to stop. I would just come home and cry. I would close the door and I would just sit there and cry. And then Bollywood movies didn't help. So my husband still makes fun of me. He's my cousin, obviously, so he knows my childhood. So whenever my mom yelled at me, or whenever I had a fight with a kid at school, or my cousins, they were my best friends. They were same age as I am. If they did something to me which I didn't like, or they said something to me which I didn't like, or they blamed me for something which wasn't true, I wouldn't say anything to them and say, no, that's not true. Rather, I would come home, close the door, and I would sit there and cry for hours. And I had so much self sympathy and self pity in me until I was 22, 25 years old. So once I went into high school, I was more involved with the school, with my friends. I had a very different personality outside of my house. In the beginning, up until high school, I was quiet, didn't have any friends at school either. I would sit at the end of the classroom, never raised my hand. Education wise, I always struggled because I guess my brain was always worried, and I couldn't focus on my education as well. So I was a very uh, low, mediocre type of student who barely passed our exam and just be happy with it. Of course, I always had this desire to be the best student in the class because I loved to study. I loved my school. I loved reading books. I guess that was my escape from the environment that I was in. So the other problem I had was my mother was not educated. She never went to school. And for some reason, I guess my nanny, my grandmother from my mom's side, or one of my aunts, none of them were educated. They put this idea into my mom's mind that these books that girls read, they're not good for them. They learn all kind of bad stuff. They read about boys, and they read about having romantic relationships and all that stuff. So my mom would not let me read any book other than whatever was given to me as my curriculum from school. So I wasn't allowed to read any books either. So but from the school library, I would just go and get the books and I would bring home. And my mom used to sleep pretty early because she had to wake up super early. So she would go to sleep by 6, 7 o'clock. And once my mom was asleep, I would take my books that I would bring from the library and I would read them. And because the only time I could read my books was at night, so I would stay up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because I was so indulged into the book and I wanted to finish it. But I couldn't put the book down because then I would have to wait until the next night after my mom falls asleep to read those books. So again, even that escape was not for me. But still, I loved books. So I would, and of course, we didn't have these phones and social media and all these fitness that we have now. So the only escape I had was books and reading and all those things. So I would do that. Then I started sketching. I came to the US. I was in 10th grade, and a friend of mine, she was a very good artist. And one day she sat me down and she said, I want to draw your sketch. And I said, sure. So she drew my sketch, and I had that sketch with me. And I said, if she can do it, I can do it. She's same age as I am. So I had this thing in me, even though I didn't talk much and I didn't have much confidence, but whenever I saw something, I wanted to do it. I guess all those things were just a distraction for me from my environment. So then I started drawing. I had a sketchbook at school because I was taking art class, and I started drawing random pictures of random people. And I would draw just human being. I didn't have any desire to draw the nature whatsoever. And I became really good at it, surprisingly. Then I would take the books and I would look at the pictures, the black and white. Usually I would take black and white photos because they were easier to copy. And I would just draw in my sketchbook. And then when my mom saw that, she was like, why are you wasting your time? You should be studying. This is not necessary. And then she ripped off my sketchbook as well. So that was another trauma for myself. And I was in high school at the time. Then my younger sister, she was very much the typical housewife type of girl. She had learned to cook. She had learned to do the embroidery, crochet, the stitching, and all that stuff, sewing. So I figured maybe I should do that and that would please my mom. Again, I was trying to fit into the box that I didn't belong in. I was always trying to copy my sister because she was very beloved to my mom. And as I was getting older, I was feeling more and more need of my mother, and my mother was not there for me emotionally by any means, even though we lived in the same household, of course. But we were very far apart from each other mentally and emotionally. So I took a dupatta and I drew flowers on it by myself. And then I had seen my sister do the embroidery, and I learned it was very easy. So I learned it from her, and I started doing that. And of course, I had a habit of when I get into something, I would just sit there and keep doing it and keep doing it, and it would just because I would give it my full attention. And then my mom, now that I was in high school, she expected me to do things around the house like do the dishes, make roti, learn some cooking, and I had no interest in cooking and stuff like that. So she came to my room, and I still remember that day. I had a small piece, it was like a handkerchief, and I had drew flowers on it, and I was doing embroidery. And my mom was so mad about something. I guess she had asked me to do something, and I didn't because I was just so busy doing, the handkerchief, the embroidery on it. She just took that and she literally tore it like this. And that was another trauma for me. So now, of course, I can't sew, I can't draw, I can't read books, I can't do the embroidery. That trauma went with me for a long period of time. Then I went to college. When I went to college, my confidence just suddenly grew. I don't know what happened. I guess what happened was when I went to college, I realized this was my world. I was very involved with my friends. I was friends with everybody in my classroom. And then my teachers loved me because I was very creative for some reason. And I will come up, like we had our annual yearly function. So my principal would call me in her office and she said, we have our annual function coming up. I want you to come up with some ideas, some stage shows, some activities that we have to perform in front of the parents and audience. We used to invite a chief guest and all that stuff. So that um, I went to high school here, but then I had to go back to Pakistan to go to college. So I went back to Pakistan and I was in college in Pakistan. And then my so my principal, my teachers, my professors, everybody loved me. I was very popular student in college. It was a girls only college, so of course it was very easy for me to be confident there. I was very shy of boys. I would never talk to boys except for my two cousins that I grew up with. Those were my only guys friends in my life. So I would do lots of stage performances, lots of activities. I'll be the mic controller, the host of the show, and all that those things. And my personality just groomed from zero to becoming a hero inside the college. But when I would come home, I was the same quiet, mind my own business type of person, and I still had that clash with my mom. Lucky enough for me that my papa lived across the street from our house, and her oldest daughter, she was like a mother to me. So for every problem that I was not able to discuss with my mom, I would go and discuss that with my cousin. So I'm telling this story for a reason. I was lucky enough that I had my dadi, I had my pupo, I had my cousin. There are lots of girls who have none of that support when they're growing up, and they have personality clash with their moms or with their dads. Some girls struggle because their dads don't like them. Lucky enough for me that my dad loved me and I loved my dad, so that was very big help because my father was a dominant figure in the house, and my mother had um, she didn't have the courage to talk back to him or say things to him because he was very dominating, and she was scared to say things to him when it came to my dad. So that helped me a lot. That protected me from lots of things that my mother probably would have said or done to me, which she didn't because my father was there. So during this whole process, of course, I was distant from my mom's side of the family. Of course, I didn't have a good relationship with my mother, so in return, I was not going to have a good relationship with her siblings as well and her nieces and nephews. But so many of her nieces and nephews, they all lived in Gaon, so they were when their kids were at the age of going to high school, they would come and live with us, and I had to deal with them now. So there's always somebody from outside was living in our household, and the problem was, I guess, because my mother had this personality clash with me. Even if I said something about her nieces and nephews, which was right, and I complained about them, she would rather get mad at me than getting mad at them. And she would think I like for some reason maybe I'm lying or something. And as a result, I had this hatred towards my mother's side of the family. And then my mother always tried to get me closer to her side of the family and try to keep me away from my dad's side of the family, whereas I loved my dad's side of the family so much. Till this day, they're my favorite people. Um, Slowly, one of my cousins started came, and she's my sister-in-law now, by the way, and she started living with us. And she was in my age. We went to the same school. We were living in the same household. And she was cool, she was chill, so I became good friends with her. And when my mom saw that I'm a good friend with her, I don't know, maybe it's just, you know, maybe that's not true, but I feel like then she started putting restrictions on me that I can't talk to her, I can't be friends with her. Like it was humanly impossible for me to avoid her. We lived in the same house, we went to the same school, we were of the same age. How could I? And I was not allowed to make any friends outside the house. Like my friends were not allowed to come to my house. I was not allowed to go to my friend's house. The only time I would spend with my friend was when I was in college. So the only friend outside of school and college was my cousin. And my mother started putting restrictions on me with her as well. Like, oh no, you can't talk to her, you can't go anywhere with her. Don't be too close to her. Like, how could I avoid her when we shared the same room? We went to the same class, same school, we lived in the same house, and we were the same age. So that again became a lots of problem for me and a cause of friction between my mom and I. And by that, then I was, old enough to get even more upset with my mother. And I started becoming very depressed. I don't think my mom knows till this day that I have been through so much mental trauma during those first 15, 20 years of my life, actually 22 years of my life. Um, then some of the cousins who came to my house, I obviously did not like them, but I had to put up with them because they were my mom's nieces and nephews. Um, and I just wanted to make this video to get this point across that this kind of trauma, because of the family politics the moms and dads have inside the family, harms your children so much. I mean, today I'm sitting in front of a camera and I'm recording my video, and I have the confidence to talk about things, and I have the confidence to say things that I would have never been able to say otherwise. I have become a very strong woman, and I think my husband has a lot to do with this. He gave me lots of confidence, lots of love and support. And when I got older, when I went to college, I had lots of good friends who were there for me throughout my life, and my teachers, my professors. I guess because they loved me so much and they believed in me so much that groomed me as a person, as who I am today, and it made me a very confident woman. And then when I became a mother myself after I got married, I had promised myself that I would not do what my mom has done to me growing up as a child. So even though I try to love my mom's side of the family, I'm married to one of my mom's nephews. Um, that battle still has not ended. She still doesn't talk to my husband, even though he's her nephew, but not because he's my husband. She doesn't like him. Again, there is this competition between me and my younger sister. My younger sister is also married to one of my khala's son, so of course now he is better than me because he's my younger sister's husband, and my husband is not good enough because he's married to me. And my mother-in-law is not good enough for my mom, but my sister's mother-in-law is the best, even though she's gone now, so I don't want to say anything bad about her, but the things that she has done to my mom and my sister, they're just undescribable, but they're still somehow better. So this friction is still going on. We have a much better relationship now because my mom is older and I'm older, and we just try to put up with each other, one way or the other. Um, but to please my mother, now let's go to the next topic. Because I was so oppressed by my mom inside my own house, to please my mother, I have done so much, and I was the oldest daughter. I was the first one to come to the US. My siblings came after me. So I did everything that I could, from sponsoring them to paying for um, their whole entire visa process, application process. And I was a young girl myself at the time. But I had a good job because I had good education, thanks to my dad. He wanted me to have a good education. So I sponsored my siblings. I took care of them. I helped them get their jobs here. I helped them buy their first home. I helped them um, get admissions in the colleges when they came to the US. I supported them in every way of the, their life when they came to the US because they were new to the country, and I already lived here for so many years. So the mistakes that I made or the hurdles that I faced, I didn't want them to go through those. So I was always there to help them. And my mother does say now that whatever my daughter has done, even a son would not have been able to do that for us. But still, that difference between me and my younger sister is still there till this day. वो कहते हैं ना कि एक बच्चे को सात खून माफ हैं. She can just go and kill me, and I would just throw something at her. I'll be the bad person. It's like Hamas versus Israel kind of situation. So uh, Israel can kill thousand people, and yet Hamas is bad because somehow they attacked, Israel, and that was also in retaliation to what Israel has been doing to Palestine for the last 70 plus years. It was the same situation, Gaza versus Israel situation in my house. Until this day, it's the same. I laugh about it now, but I used to cry about it every day. Then you grow up and then you try to please your mom, you try to become friends with her side of the family and those aunts and cousins, and they pretend to be that they do love you, and then they don't, because this is what happens when you don't respect your own children. When you show to the world that this child is less than, everybody else around you will start treating that child the same way. No matter what you say, they're not gonna, they might feel pity and they might feel some sympathy for that child at some point in their lives, but they will find it so much easier to bully that child. They'll find it so much easier to badmouth that child. They'll find it so much easier to say things to them on their face because they know that their parents are not gonna say anything because they already don't like them for some reason. um, so I just wanted to say that these emotional traumas and painful sufferings are going to destroy kids. Be very careful. Not everybody is going to be as lucky as I was. I still had some support around me, which helped me. I, alhamdulillah, found some good friends. I had some very good relatives who were there for me to replace my mom's love. That includes my pupo and my cousin, and my dad always loved me and I love my dad. I always say he's my hero, he's my Babar Sher, and he is my role model. I always wanted to be like my dad for so many reasons. This is not just the reason. He is a kind-hearted man. On the surface, he's very tough and he's very strong, but inside he has a very soft heart. My mom, on the other hand, she will cry over everything. She's very emotional. On the surface, she's very soft and kind, but inside she has a very stubborn heart. If she doesn't like someone, that grudge will go a long way, and it doesn't leave her. She has a curse of not forgetting things. My dad, on the other hand, is very different. He forgives people, he forgets, and he moves on. Um, of course, if somebody makes him mad, he will react to that, but he doesn't harm people in a way that makes him less human being. So he's my role model. Um, so once I grew up, sorry, I lost my chain of thought for a second. So I'm just recording this video. I'm telling you my personal experiences. Yes, today I'm a confident woman. I'm a wonderful wife. I consider myself to be a great wife and a wonderful mother. I have done my best to raise my kids in a very positive environment. I don't care what people think of my children. They are not important to me. And I don't care as long as I know my children are not doing anything wrong ethically and they're not doing anything wrong, which is not accepted by Allah and His Prophet and his parent and their parents. I honestly don't care what general public thinks of me, what my relatives think of my kids, what anybody in this society thinks of my children, because their opinion, their validation is absolutely not needed. And I feel like half the time parents are causing this kind of emotional trauma to kids because they need validation from their family. And because we lived in a gaon, in gaon, the very talkative girls, the very sharp, the girls who act like grown-up women, जैसे वो पक्की औरतों वाली जो जिनमें हैबिट्स होती हैं लड़कियों में, they are very much appreciated and they are considered to be smart girls, versus as someone like me who's quiet, mind her own business, doesn't get involved with so much family politics and drama, is considered to be सीधी सादी लड़की. And I wasn't सीधी सादी लड़की. I was very smart in my own certain way, but yes, I wasn't that पक्की औरत at a very young age. The kind of women or girls the people in the village like, who has a great command over cooking and cleaning and dishes and embroidery, and that was not my skill set. My skill set was more of an academic side. I was more like I would be great in running a multi-million dollar business, for example. I would be a wonderful person to get higher education. I would be a wonderful person to do some kind of charity work for the society. This standing in the kitchen and cooking meal for my family was not my forte. It wasn't my cup of tea, and that's not my skill set till this day. I do cook for my family now. I'm a mother and a wife, of course, but not my strongest suit that I that I can be proud of. Even now, I want to go out and do things that really make me feel good about myself, and that's what I'm good at till this day. So please accept your children who they are. Don't try to make them what they cannot be and what they're not. Because if you do this, you're going to destroy their personality. You're going to cause lots of anxiety and depression in their lives. And lots of children commit suicide and they give up on their lives because other people you can ignore, but when it's your own parents and your own immediate family members, it's hard to ignore because you have to spend 24 hours with them. You're living in the same household, and that causes lots of problems in their lives. And then, even when they're married, after they have spouses, their children, they struggle with them and they make their life difficult. Alhamdulillah, thank God, whatever, somebody's prayers worked for me, and I didn't turn out to be that person. I did suffer in the beginning, of course, but I guess I became stronger by the day. And sometimes I actually say, Allah had to put me through all this because I was so sensitive that if I had not gone through all this emotional trauma, maybe I would have been living still in that dreamland where everything is perfect and everybody loves each other. That was my little own bubble that I used to live in growing up, where I felt like nothing is wrong and everybody is happy and everybody is friends with everybody. And when that bubble shatters, it just shocks the hell out of you. So that bubble did shatter for me. But thank God my mom had already shattered that bubble for me inside the house, so it wasn't as much traumatic for me as it could have been. And that's the time when people actually end up giving up on their lives and they commit suicide and they do horrible things, or they become criminals, or they go to drugs, or they go to other things which kind of takes their pain away from them. Lucky for me, I was more involved with books, maybe music at times. I wasn't allowed to listen to music either, by the way, but I would listen to it when my mom wasn't around. Um, and my friends at the school level, and then my dad and my pupo and my oldest cousin, I guess they were the biggest support for me. So it helped me a lot. But for lots of people, they may not find those small helpful um, resources, and they may end up giving up on their lives. So please accept your children who they are. Please don't try to compare them with others. Don't try to make them what they cannot be and what they never be. And even if they try, it's going to destroy their personality because that's not who they are. Even if I try till this day to act like my sister, I will not be able to do so because it's just not my personality. I can't do it. And as a result, I will never be close to my mother, I don't think, till I die. And that's okay for me now at this point because now I don't care. I love my mother, I respect her. She's my door to Jannah. And of course, I'm not going to be disobedient to her and disrespectful to her. But that personality clash will stay with us forever. And that's all right for me now. But growing up as a child, it wasn't. It was very traumatic. It was very stressful. It was very chaotic. It was very painful for me. And even today, when I talk about it, it does make me sad because all those memories come back to me. But now, if my mother says something or does something, doesn't bother me, and I just laugh it off and I say, "Amma, you're never going to change. What am I supposed to do with you?" And I guess she probably feels the same way, that this stupid girl is never going to change. She was stupid and she is stupid and she will be stupid, and that's probably what she thinks of me, and that's okay. Sometimes parents, yeah, they say, your parents, nobody can be better than your parents, or nobody is more close friends to you than your parents, which is true, they are. But sometimes intentionally or unintentionally, knowing or unknowingly, they cause loss of pain to your life as well. And I'm a living example of that. And all of these things that I told you, none of them are just a fake story or a sob story that I'm trying to tell. This is a true story of my life, and I have experienced all those things. There's a lot more to go over, but of course that's irrelevant. But till this day, I struggle with my mom's side of the family. With my mom, I'm more close to my dad's side of the family, and everybody, surprisingly, on my dad's side of the family did like me as well for some reason over my sister. They always thought I was a better person than my sister. They always loved me more. They always took care of me more. I guess the reason being was we had, I guess my father and his family kind of had the same mindset as I am. My mother And her family, of course, they all come from a different culture, so they had same mindset, and my sister could relate to them. So she fits in perfect into that picture, and that's perfectly fine. But it's a request to moms and dads, please don't do this to your children. Please don't cause this emotional pain and trauma, because that will cause a loss of self-sympathy in the kids, self-pity in them, lots of and then even when they grow up and they become parents, they show that self-pity and self-sympathy in front of their children, and then children don't care in this time and age. They don't care if their mom and dad had suffered in their lives. All they want is for us to become good parents to them. So please help your kids grow up to be strong mothers and fathers, strong boys and girls, strong husbands and wives for the future, and don't take their childhood away from them. Don't compare them with other kids of your family, and don't try to make them what they cannot be. I hope this video helps. Please subscribe to my channel. Please give me your input in the comment section below. Please give my video a thumbs up. Until next video, Allah Hafiz.